You know that feeling, right? You're caught in the middle of an argument, and both sides are absolutely convinced they're right. They've got their facts, they've got their evidence, but they end up in completely different places. It makes you wonder, how are you supposed to figure out what's real when even the experts can't agree? Well, let's jump right into this and watch a classic academic showdown unfold.
Okay, so picture this. One professor. He's laying down the law. You can almost hear it in his voice. He's done the work. He's crunched the numbers. And as far as he's concerned, this debate is over. The data, he says, is irrefutable. Case closed. But wait, his colleague immediately pushes back. And what's so interesting here is that she's not attacking his data. Not at all. She's going after his method, how he got that data in the first place. By using his name, Horowitz, she's making it personal and directly challenging his entire investigative approach.
And she doesn't stop there. She gets specific. She says the process wasn't methodical, it wasn't orderly, it wasn't systematic. And because of that, she says, there's a huge margin for error. Basically, she's arguing that you can't trust any conclusion built on such a shaky foundation. And boom, this is where it all boils over. Professor Horowitz is just completely frustrated. He thinks her argument is absurd, totally ridiculous. He can't believe she's just ignoring what he sees as the plain truth. You can feel it, right? This isn't just a professional disagreement anymore. So what is this huge, groundbreaking debate they're having? Get this, it's the age-old question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. And it's kind of the perfect example, isn't it? It shows how even a question that seems simple on the surface can lead to a really intense, passionate, evidence-based fight. And that really brings us to the heart of it all. Let's forget about the chicken and the egg for a second. When you are faced with conflicting information, even from people who seem to know what they're talking about, how do you sort through all that noise and find an answer you can actually trust? Well, first things first, before we can even start to find an answer, we have to speak the language. The words people use when they're trying to prove a point are incredibly important. They're like the building blocks of their argument. So let's quickly break down the key words our professors were just throwing around. Remember when Professor Horowitz said his data was irrefutable? That's a huge claim. It's the highest standard there is. When someone uses that word, they're saying there's literally no room for debate. It's an absolute fact. But you've got to ask yourself, is it really? Or are they just using a powerful word to try and shut down the conversation? His colleague fired back that his approach was flawed. Now, this is a very clever way to argue. She's not necessarily saying his conclusion is wrong. She's saying that the process he used to get there had some serious weaknesses, which makes the whole thing unreliable. It's that shaky foundation idea all over again. She also said his work wasn't systematic. All this means is that it didn't follow a clear, organized process. And that's a big deal. Without a system, your results can be biased or just plain random. Having a system is kind of the secret ingredient for finding answers you can actually rely on. And finally, we get to preposterous. You can just feel the emotion in that word. It's what you say when an argument sounds so ridiculous, it just defies all logic. It's a signal that the productive conversation is over, and now it's just about frustration. Okay, so we've got the vocabulary down, but how do we actually get past the heated words and settle these arguments for real? Well, that brings us to the amazing tool designed for exactly this purpose, research. Now, research can sound like a big, intimidating word, but it's really not. At its heart, it's just a structured way of discovering things. It's how we move from I think this is true to I know this is true. It's the engine that lets us answer questions in a way that other people can check for themselves. And I'm telling you, its impact is everywhere. The medicines that keep us healthy, that's thanks to research. The reason you don't, hopefully, sit in traffic for 3 hours every day? Yep, city planners used research. It's how we learn about everything, and it's what helps us make smarter decisions. When you hear the word research, you probably picture a scientist in a lab coat, right? But that's just one tiny little piece of the pie. The truth is, research isn't just one thing. There are tons of different ways to discover, all depending on the question you're trying to answer. So yeah, you've got scientific research. That's what gives us smartphones and vaccines. But historical research is just as important. It's like being a detective, digging through the past to figure out who we are. Market research figures out what you and I actually want to buy. And then you have social and environmental research, which helps us understand ourselves and protect the world around us. Each one is just a different tool for finding the truth. So, no matter what kind of research it is, there's a common thread. Good research is never just a random shot in the dark. It follows a logical, step-by-step blueprint. You can think of it like a roadmap for finding trustworthy answers. And that roadmap is pretty straightforward. It starts with a topic and a really specific question. Then you go out and gather information. The next part is key. You have to analyze all that information, look for patterns, and try to make sense of it. From there, you draw your conclusions based on what the evidence tells you. And finally, and this is super important, you share your results so other people can test your work. It's a clear, repeatable cycle.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This is all great for scientists, but what does it have to do with me? Well, this brings us to the most important point of all. You already use these exact same skills probably every single day. You're a researcher, and you might not even know it.
Seriously, think about it. Have you ever spent an hour reading product reviews before buying something new? That's research. Ever compared a bunch of hotels and flights to plan a vacation? You're gathering and analyzing data. Looking up what a weird health symptom might mean, finding a new recipe, even just checking the traffic before you leave the house. It's all the same process. And here's the bottom line for today's world. Finding information, that's the easy part. A quick search online gives you a million answers in half a second. The real challenge, the skill that truly matters now, is figuring out if any of that information is actually reliable and true. Being a good researcher today really just means being a good critical thinker. So the next time you run into a couple of experts who totally disagree, or you just have a big decision to make, try to put on your researcher hat. Think about the words they're using. Ask where their information is coming from. And most importantly, ask yourself, what is my investigative approach going to be?